You cannot talk about the Black Ops campaigns without talking about Gabriel Krafft and subsequently zombies anymore. This is absolutely insane. Richtofen may have been tied to the campaigns down to a chair, literally from the start. With the release of Citadelle Day More, we've received many shocking reveals in the intel about the connections to the Chaos storyline, about Richtofen's past, and much more that we've dived into in videos, but these weren't all entirely surprising for some people, especially those who have been avid watchers of this channel, as we've been discussing these possibilities for some time now. But there was one thing though which was totally unexpected and caught everyone off guard. Could we be seeing the return and official canonization of the original Black Ops 1 GK Nova viral? And looking back at the old GK Nova virals, so many things now seem so relevant to the story being told today, as if by magic. This video will blow your mind, potentially even just as much as being an MK Ultra victim. We discuss this and so much more in this video, so stay tuned.
The boy is having nightmares again. The terrible things. He wakes drenched in sweat, screaming that it's his turn. He does not remember in the morning. I am beginning to wonder if he is actually taking the pills or if he is just lying to me. Either way, the boy needs a fresh start. Something to help him forget the things that haunt him. Perhaps we both do. Weeks ago, I applied to a project in America. My background in the occult and my unique, field experience make me a perfect candidate. I can't say too much even here, but the work is exciting. An excursion along the frontiers of science. The CIA are calling it MK Ultra. I haven't heard back yet, but I'm keeping my hopes high. This could be exactly what Eddie and I need. Perhaps in America we can find a way to end the nightmares. For both of us.
Unbeknownst to everyone, the wholesome and fatherly Gabriel Krafft, who we helped save from a terrible tragedy in World War II, was actually a contributor in perhaps the most horrific set of experiments conducted in the modern era, Project MK Ultra, known commonly as the CIA's mind control program. Not only does this need us to totally reassess our understanding of Eddie Richtofen and why he now seemingly hates his adoptive father, Gabriel Krafft, who sets up his new life, but also changes our perspective on Krafft's influence on the entire Black Ops saga. Which means if you want to do a video recapping the entire Black Ops campaigns, you cannot do so with mentioning Gabriel Krafft, as it is so pertinent. But exactly why would someone like Krafft's experience be relevant enough to accept his application? He says it is to do with his background in the occult and unique field experience. This is interesting because, as far as we know, his only real field experience is with the events of Vanguard Zombies, as prior to that, he was simply a scholar. This means that, at some level, even at its inception, the US government considered MK Ultra research to be somewhat adjacent to the Dark Aether and/or its magic. So what do we know about MK Ultra, both from real-life documents and the times it's been present in the Black Ops series? MK Ultra, both in the real world and in the Black Ops series, is a chilling study into the intersection of psychological manipulation and control, and exists to answer the question of just how much of the brain can we control. Born in 1954 from the ashes of Project Artichoke, MK Ultra was a secret CIA program aiming to develop techniques of mind control through a mixture of psychological and physical coercion that was truly disturbing. The infamous real-life program involving psychedelic drugs like LSD, administered in conjunction with other very advanced techniques such as psychic driving. This is a mental torture act that involves talk therapy where victims continuously undergo psychological breakdowns followed by rebuilding. The idea was to really shatter a person's will and implant new behaviors and attitudes inside them, often against their consent. Experiments could be everything from drug-induced hallucinations to prolonged isolation and outright torture, with voluntary and non-voluntary subjects targeted alike. Many of the study participants left the experiments physically shattered, unable to even tell the difference between natural reality and the artificial patterns imposed upon them. This is truly one of the most horrific things the US government has ever done inside of the real world. And Treyarch decided when they were concocting the storyline for Black Ops that they would take this dark truth and put a crazier spin on it. Do not trust the government. In the Black Ops series, MKUltra is reimagined into a narrative linchpin that weaves both historical fact with fiction, and now perhaps magical intrigue. Central to the storyline are the program's hallucinogenic and psychological manipulation techniques, specifically in the mental conditioning of characters such as Alex Mason, whose minds are warped due to drugs and torture, leading to implanted memories and behaviors. Similarly, in Black Ops Cold War, Samantha Maxis is treated by director Edward Richtofen with a number of MKUltra's actual psychic driving techniques. We even hear her and Richtofen mirror the conversations of Hudson and Mason during the Black Ops 1 campaign, an example which we know was MKUltra.
Wake up. Wake up!
Where am I? Where's Natsu?
Wake up. Wake up.
Where am I? Where's Reznov?
You will answer our questions. Do you understand?
Who the hell are you?
That's not important. What's important is who you are. What is your name?
Fuck you!
Where were you born?
Kiss my ass!
You will answer our questions. Do you understand?
Who the hell are you?
That's not important. What's important is who you are. What's your name?
Fuck you!
Where were you born?
Kiss my ass!
Your name is Samantha Maxis. You were born in Berlin, November 5th. Is that correct? Your name is Alex Mason. You were born in Fairbanks, Alaska. In 1961, you served in a CIA assassination team known as Operation 40. Is that correct?
Weaver was also involved in interrogating Alex Mason alongside Hudson, so, despite having a personal tie to Richtofen, made him an even more perfect candidate to be targeted and hand-selected by him for Requiem. Richtofen systematically destroys Samantha's psyche through trauma and hallucinogens, which distort her perception to make her act accordingly and erratically. It is arguably the largest driving force in her off-screen character arc between maps, transforming her into someone wildly more competent, confident, and powerful during her time in Block 8. When we last see her in Mawada Toten, she is still weak, does not understand her abilities, and speaks with a meek and subdued tone. By the time she appears in Forsaken, she is strong, aware of how to use her powers, and ready to sacrifice herself to subdue the Forsaken. Could it be this MKUltra experimentation somehow unlocked her prior memories of the Aether storyline, allowing her to better harness her powers? That seems to be what Citadelle Day Moore is suggesting, so let's take a closer look. Krafft says he was brought in for his expertise as we discussed earlier. Now that we know how MKUltra works, this expertise is likely using his experience with demonic, magic, and otherwise supernatural and unimaginable things to help warp the human mind with induced similar symptoms of schizophrenia. Or it could be that he is quite literally using rune magic of some sort to influence the mind. Though this is less likely, as Krafft mentions in the Citadelle Day Moore quest that magic is very locationally influenced, and he himself cannot muster it if it isn't already there, baked into the land. So let's go with the hallucinogenic pathway then. If Krafft was a major mover in MKUltra, could he have perhaps had a hand in this breakthrough? Well, we learn in Black Ops 6's campaign of The Cradle. The Cradle is a brainwashing gas that was originally successfully developed in the 1970s, with trials of it seemingly starting around the same time as MKUltra. It's a gas that, when inhaled dealt by Case in the campaign causes him to hallucinate. What's interesting about some of these, though, outside of fighting zombies and elites, is they feature something specific. Prior memories that were beforehand hidden away in Case's mind. Phones around the map that are obviously disconnected and have been for decades ring and replay conversations that Case had long been forced to forget. While this is intended to reveal some of Case's twisting backstory information, the implications when placed against our current discussion become much more interesting. In Classified, we learn of inhaling element 115 as a gas that would create brainwashed zombies, allowing a relative amount of control. We see zombie-based brainwashing again when, in Cold War's intel, Ravenov recounts his experience of seeing Kravchenko inject Ethereum directly into someone's brain in an attempt to control their mind, which Peck creates a similar truth serum that he ends up inhaling himself on Firebase Z. While this experiment ordered by Valentina was a failure and only killed the subject, it shows again that zombies, 115, and Ethereum after that have all consistently stayed adjacent to mind control research. Bell and Jane Harrow both also encounter zombies in their minds when hallucinating from MK Ultra related mind control. Each of them are given a drug called separation, a drug created by MK Ultra by the CIA that can, according to Adler, induce a form of schizophrenia-like symptoms on the subject, fragmenting the psyche and allowing for the implementation of new memories and instructions. Perhaps Eddie was one of the first subjects of the MK Ultra trials, given some sort of early version of separation in an attempt to free him from his haunting nightmares and make sense of his memories in a healthier manner. This is very much implied in the quote from Krafft, and he wants to figure out a way to help Eddie. However, Eddie was very different from any other subject prior or afterwards. His mind was already fractured into multiples. We know that Eddie, as a normal child, seemingly did not remember the Ether story, but seemed to have nightmares about it as a child, although Krafft does not know if he is lying to some extent to him. This seems to imply that Eddie had Richthofen dormant in his psyche, but forced it into the recesses of the subconsciousness. This is backed up by Samantha's notes from her time in the Dark Aether. There were multiple times that the amnesiac Sam would black out before waking up with a knife in her hands and covered in blood, seemingly killing Omega soldiers that were similarly sent in there and lost without her knowing it. It is suggested that this other Sam alter ego personality is far closer to her classic Ether story appearance and personality, a demonic little girl who loves to kill people she considers bad, corrupted by the ether from the MPD. It seems then this condition originally applied to both, but in an attempt to save Eddie, Krafft attempted to crush his psyche and rebuild it using his new research. But because the memories in Eddie were already hidden and walked away, he unlocked them, similar to Case or Bell. Which, by the way, I accidentally said Adler instead of Bell in a recent video. I was just thinking of the interrogation scene of Adler and Bell when I said that, but anyways. So, instead of saving Eddie, Krafft may have in fact doomed him, and the world along with it. Instead of fracturing his psyche into pieces, it brought these pieces back together, unlocking the memories of the Ether storyline for Eddie and changing him more into Richthofen than he'd ever been before. More similar to the versions we have seen before. This likely explains why we normally hear Eddie with an American accent, but under times of stress, he seems to slip back into his German voice. Although at the same time, he was initially in an orphanage in Germany, and Krafft, being his adoptive father, was German too. So it could be he just picked up on that German accent because he did have an American accent in the house. And it's unclear if he's just putting on an American accent, working in the American government, trying to hide the German side of himself. But anyways, this may mean that in Krafft doing some of these experiments on Eddie, whilst he thought they were for the greater good to help him reconcile with his memories and rid him of his nightmares, this was of course child abuse, so may have actually been the reason Eddie started on this dark path in this new universe, this new life that was supposed to be a better life for him, potentially even before losing his family. Maybe the tragic event of that day just solidified who he was and the path he is on. This is why Eddie wanted to do sick things to Krafft, as Franco mentions on Citadelle, but also still sees him as somewhat of a father figure, doing these things whilst also keeping a relationship and speaking with him that he lied to the French syndicate about. As for Krafft, despite him taking extreme beatings under Richthofen's orders, he still maintained a talking relationship with Richthofen and cared for him, even so far as telling Weaver and co to not kill his son in the Citadelle ending, most likely because he feels guilty for the trauma he enacted on Richthofen as a child and his many other MKUltra test subjects, and so understands why Richthofen now is the way he is and doesn't fault him for it, and understands why Richthofen would want to enact extreme pain on him similarly, and understands why he is on this path for revenge and retaliation. Whilst maybe Krafft was forced into some of the things he did under MKUltra by the US government, it's unclear for now. Potentially when he first got into it, he had good intentions, but was drawn further and further across a path he wished he wouldn't cross, and by the point he could have been too far in to get out. And maybe he didn't have much of a choice in that, but only time will tell. Gray also says in the ending of Citadelle Day More that Krafft likely didn't know the monster Eddie was/is until it was too late. And the thing is, considering that Krafft enacted MKUltra on Richthofen as a child, he then went on to enact MKUltra onto Samantha Maxis as an adult, the sick things he wanted the French syndicate to do on Krafft could have also been some form of MKUltra experimentations, potentially trying to unlock the memory of where the Sentinel artifact is so he could get it for himself, or other knowledge that he may have wanted, which puts a tragic bow on their entire stories and lives. The trauma keeps on repeating, and potentially this is even how Richthofen gained a lot of the knowledge over the years, not just through physically researching through Krafft's documents, but maybe through unlocking his memories through MKUltra. And the fact that Krafft was able to resist the beatings much more than the rest shows that he is a lot more resilient, probably because he was involved in MKUltra from the beginning, so knows the methods to resist a lot more. Or potentially some rune magic or some other powers unlocked via the Citadelle allowed him to resist further. Krafft is blurry morally speaking, as is Eddie and most of the characters in the zombie story. Him unlocking these memories maybe also made him too knowledgeable on the Dark Aether, and then he started on an obsession through Krafft's research. Now here's the biggest thing I want to propose in this video. I want to hypothesize that this memory awakening process is something we have already seen. Let's go back in time about 14 years to 2010. As the years move closer to the winter and the release of the first Black Ops game approaches, Treyarch begins what is now probably their most iconic viral marketing campaign in order to tease their upcoming title. The viral is known as GK Nova. GK Nova is, or was, a viral site that was promoting Call of Duty Black Ops. The Flash site had an old television with 5 vertical lights, one for each channel. More televisions were gradually turned on as the site updated. Originally, the site was filled with Cold War and nuclear technology references, before it finally turned into a recreation of the Zombies menu when it was completed. We see Hudson, who is normally standing at the interrogation window, be replaced by a zombie smacking against the glass, and zombies start appearing on the TV screens when you scroll to the Zombies menu, and everything goes red as the original damned menu music begins to play. Something people have been speculating about for years as to why Hudson turns into a zombie here. It seems none of these are real, but are instead demonic Dark Aether influenced hallucinations. This is tying up so many zombies and campaign threads with one hard sweep. And it seems that Mason, undergoing MKUltra and the Russians' experiments as well, similarly experienced demonic Dark Aether influenced visions. We won't go too much into the physical item drops given to members of the community at this time for now to keep this video a reasonable length. Rather, I want to discuss the transmissions here. I believe these are now being explained to us rather than just simply existing as game canon adjacent viral marketing. These videos have since become iconic to the Black Ops franchise, franchise, and with every large release, Treyarch returned to their roots for some interesting viral marketing. The flashes of videos and different sounds played are showing us the process of someone undergoing MKUltra experimentation. Before now, we've always assumed it was an unnamed and relatively unimportant individual. However, re-evaluating some classic stuff with the new evidence sheds a completely different light here. Originally, we always looked for different explanations across games as to why it was called GK Nova. The most commonly accepted interpretation is that it was named after Gorky Korolev, a cousin of Lev Kravchenko, who started a fake shell company in order to move Nova 6 into the United States. This company was known as Gorky Korolev Medical, or GKM for short. There have also been other meanings given to the letters GK throughout Black Ops history in various campaign intel, game marketing, and hidden messages. G.erman knowledge is another great example, found here from a cipher in the GK Nova files. When translated, it reads, "From part we may judge the whole. MKUltra, Bluebird, Artishock, the past, the truth, bloom brought the evil, someone hide it. Gov versus God, believe in the Weltice, and the dead start walking. Power, G.erman knowledge. Beware of the Black Sun. Search the truth, it is still there. Son of the Hood. 4 letters, Building 87. Clean the world in a manner which is honourable. Yggdrasil." The interesting thing in G.erman knowledge here as well is that it's specifically written with the periods breaking up the words, with it being G.erman, K.knowledge. At the time, it seemed a bit out of place, assumedly just a way to ensure we made the connection to GK, but frankly not needed, as we could have easily put this together on our own. It almost seems like it stands for something else, like initials. Initials that we've seen reappear again, written exactly like this, quite recently, in fact. When we first saw this note in Terminus, I did laugh a little and think of the GK Nova viral, but immediately realised it obviously means Gabriel Krafft, especially considering it's revealed in the ending cutscene what we now have done on Citadelle, locate the man himself in search for the Sentinel artifact. What I assumed was a nostalgic misunderstanding on my part may have actually been the correct assumption the entire time, though. This G.erman knowledge was likely the exact experience Krafft mentioned earlier that made him perfect for the job. Now that we know Krafft was involved in the early MKUltra experimentations, it's not only possible he was there for the GK Nova experiments, but actually quite likely that he was. If he is, then it stands to reason that the GK in GK Nova might very well actually stand for Gabriel Krafft and G.erman knowledge simultaneously, him being a G.erman with extremely valuable knowledge on all things occult and Dark Aether related from Vanguard, of course, and potentially in this viral, he's experimenting on Eddie just like we thought. This could be our physical preview of this tragedy. So this could have been Treyarch doing a double entendre on Terminus all along, leading us in 2 directions that both coincide. The Nova in the name that we originally assumed referenced Nova 6 being transported into the US may actually be in reference to the Nova 4 gas from Black Ops Cold War's Warzone storyline. To not show its influence in Warzone quickly, this was a gas that was being experimented with by Steiner that was an offshoot of Nova 6. Molecularly different in such a way that it would fracture the mind and cause hallucinations to anyone who breathed it in. And one of the Die Wonder Weapon upgrades on D Machine is another offshoot, that being Nova 5. We see brainwashing tech, Nova gas, and more also resurface in Black Ops Cold War, when the characters return to Steiner's mountaintop lab in Mount Yamantau, part of the Ural Mountains, in Russia in the campaign. Also an integral location in the zombie story, obviously. We learn here that the Russians, using Steiner's research, were already attempting their own experiments somewhat similar to MKUltra, backed up by Mason's experience in Vorkuta. Could they have had their own demonologist experts? This is interesting because we can also recall a D Machine leak that seemed to suggest Steiner was going to originally be a part of the map, before being replaced by Orlov/Medvedev. Could it be that his tech originally played a bigger part in the Dark Aether story, but Craig Houston and the writing team chose against this at the last second? Or could it simply be that Steiner himself was replaced, but his brainwashing Nova Gas tech was still given a larger role to play in the zombie story? This means that what we are witnessing in these videos is Gabriel Krafft using his own early MKUltra prototype made with Nova Gas to potentially brainwash Eddie in an attempt to fix his broken mind. However, considering just what Eddie is willing to do to Krafft and how little he seems to care for him, it seems that he does not remember this process fondly. This means that this experience was likely torture to him, especially considering that when he attempts to recreate this process on Samantha in Black Ops Cold War, his largest steps are taken to ensure she is emotionally pushed to the brink consistently. For example, threatening to kill her dog or her more than a friend Gray if she did not oblige. When her powers were finally truly awakened due to Richtofen's brainwashing and traumatic manipulation, and she shatters the glass to see his face for the first time, likely the moment her memories return to her. What was happening? She was strapped to a chair, undergoing MKUltra experimentation, just as Alex Mason was in Black Ops 1, which similarly was the CIA attempting to awaken Mason's real memories and undo and make sense of the brainwashing by Reznov, and figure out what do the numbers mean. This is exactly why Richtofen carried out the same process on Samantha Maxis, because he literally was potentially the first, if not one of the first, test subjects himself. He learned of it firsthand and carried on this cycle of abuse by enacting the same onto his once childhood best friend, getting revenge on her for her role in the death of his family, and awakening her powers for his own goal, potentially awakening her memories as well as they did to him, meaning by the last time we see her on Forsaken, she may already be fully aware of her memories, and her sacrifice could have been a last-ditch effort to prove she is a good soul, as Richtofen repeatedly manipulated and lamented to her to make up for the day she may have ruined Richtofen's life. This makes her sacrifice a lot more poignant if she did remember what she did, and came to terms with Richtofen off-screen, potentially even remembering and reconciling with him, because like I said, if she shattered the blacked-out glass, she would surely get a view of Richtofen firsthand. With Richtofen undergoing MKUltra as a child, it is a wonder if he was up to any wrong even before the death of his family, which is why Weaver and Sam targeted him, beyond my prior theory of Samantha just being jealous of only him being adopted, in her warped mind potentially warranting his death. Surely if he underwent MKUltra, he would have gone insane and dove into Krafft's research and all things Dark Aether, especially if his memories were fully restored. Was he already down a dark path at this point? Could he have even carried on doing MKUltra on his own family? Especially since many who experience parental trauma often do the same to their own children, unable to escape the cycle, just as in Zombies. There are so many angles Treyarch could take that we'll hopefully get answers for soon, but if Richtofen's memories would truly only properly established and unlocked through MKUltra, then does this also debunk our prior theory that maybe Samantha had her memories prior to being sent into the Dark Aether on Firebase Z? In that case, only being able to awaken them when Richtofen did similar experiments on her. It's a bit unclear for now, and it's also a bit unclear to what extent Richtofen had his memories, as Krafft points out he could be lying to what extent they are, and considering he was having nightmares, he did remember them to some extent, but they just caused him deep pain, and maybe he couldn't properly piece together all of his memories, but they were seemingly still present to some extent, so surely they would have been for Samantha as well, and she similarly should have been experiencing nightmares prior to the events of Cold War. We know she experiences nightmares during Cold War, but surely she would have experienced them prior, and the events of when she was a child in the Aetherverse, and all the tragedy she caused there. So now, in Black Ops 6, we are finally seeing a 14-year-old mysterious viral campaign be answered, giving longtime fans what is likely the highest tier fan service that classic lore lovers could get. Most people around my age were inspired into liking Zombies by the high concepts and unique viral campaigns that began with GK Nova, especially Treyarch's masterful piecing of the real world and fiction. And now we are seeing the actual events of this viral hold weight in potentially the final hours of this new Richtofen story. I think it's also quite possible, as we know that Craig Houston had major involvement in writing these campaigns, especially in the era of Black Ops 1 when MK Ultra was at its most pertinent, and now with stuff like Project Nova and Project Aether being mentioned in Vanguard, and Cold War as well as Black Ops 6 returning to the MK Ultra theming as well. Craig, now having done this for so long in his life, as he gets higher in age, would likely want to call back on and resolve any of the campaign's mysteries or parts of it he enjoyed to help bring the story full circle. And since every viral marketing campaign since has had some level of association with the GK, whether it be the technology left over, such as Black Ops 3, or the people who remember them, this means that every single marketing campaign for every single Black Ops all leads back to Krafft and Richtofen. It would even tie all the way forward into the Nightmares mode in Black Ops 3, as Element 115 is used to create a mind control compound during DNI research, a gas made up of both Nova 6 and 115, dubbed 6115, which would flood the world to create an undead army and create the outbreaks we see in the Nightmares mode, which, to me, is probably just yet another universe in the endless multiverse of the Aether. This, to me, ties everything together from the classic stuff up to now in such an interesting and satisfying bow that I felt as though I had to make a video on this once I started heavily considering it. But before we end the discussion, I'd like to leave you with the last words spoken in GK Nova Transmission 1. Hell is purple. This phrase, mysterious and surrealistic, takes on an entirely new meaning when viewed with the context of our current story. This phrase can now clearly be heard as a warning of the Dark Aether, a hell dimension below our own that outside the reign of Cortifex is usually depicted as purple, and most commonly what we have seen it as, since we went into it for the first time in Black Ops Cold War. Perhaps hearing the warning about this purple hell is what finally snapped Eddie's old memories back into place. And it's absolutely insane how this quote from over 10 years ago is so relevant today. Obviously intentionally when they first wrote this line, but now with the writers looking back on their past work, they can tie it all back together. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what I've been stewing on since the release of Citadelle Day More. The other videos, like the original characters one, felt more important to get out quickly, but this has remained on my mind, and I felt like I'd go crazy if I didn't talk about it, almost as crazy as the MK Ultra victims. Do you agree? Do you see them potentially making the GK Nova viral canon now? And do you think it could be possible there was even a prior version of Krafft in the Aether multiverse who also helped invent MK Ultra in those universes? Since many characters such as Weaver existed in the campaigns in the prior multiverse and this new story. So surely there would be other versions of Krafft out there as well, or other people to take Krafft's role in the MK Ultra program in many of those infinite universes. Am I crazy? Let me know what you think, and do you want to see more videos on any specific topics, because I'm going to be making so many storyline videos going as in depth, if not more, than this one. But this one's been a very interesting one to make, so if you have enjoyed it, make sure you like and subscribe and stay tuned on the channel, because there's going to be plenty more to come. But without further ado, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.